Clutching at my neck won't leave me alone. Will you see yourself back in the sun? The light it stings while the night it sings to me. An abnormal hell, a story I can't tell, but they'll see the gift they've given to me. I could step aside, I could end this life, but this disease, it won't release, it won't be cured by the night. I guess I'm never coming back. I'm only on.
Welcome back to the St. By Night Twitch channel where we play St. Petersburg By Night, a massive multiplayer 5th edition World of Darkness Chronicle set in the city of St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Kent, also known as Misha Kent on all social media, but really that's not all that important since most social media seems to be dying a slow and painful death. But what you should do while it still exists is go follow St. Pete By Night on all social media. You can see us listed down below there at our various venues. They're also listed on Twitch and on the video descriptions on YouTube. So go give us a follow on all of those wonderful sites to see some cool kind of content that we're churning out for you on a fairly regular basis. What do we do here at St. Pete By Night? Well, we play Vampire the Masquerade. We play Werewolf the Apocalypse. And as of Friday, we now have a Hunter the Reckoning stream run by our very own Coldark, which is very, very interesting and good so far. So you're going to have to stay tuned to that each and every week. Check the schedule down below for all of our amazing, amazing programming that we have for you. Tonight, however, this is After Dark, and in After Dark, we go behind the scenes of St. Pete By Night. We draw back the veil, the curtain, any other obscuring mass that blocks you from being able to see all the things that happen in this amazing and lovely community. We talk to players, we talk to storytellers, we talk to movers and shakers in the world of darkness, and we talk about the game and all the things that make this game wonderful, lovely, and make it happen. Tonight it's just an absolutely jam-packed episode though, for a multitude of reasons, some of which I'm going to get in tonight. Tonight, we have a giveaway, and also, since we passed our 500th follower, we have a second giveaway going to that amazing 500th follower, also known as 10K on our server. They were our 500th follower. So, our giveaway and our prize for our 500th follower are the same thing. You can get a custom artwork piece from our newest partnered vendor, Champ's Tramps, also known as Champ on our server, Hey You, and a variety of other monikers that she seems to add to each and every single week. You can see on the right-hand side there her chibi pack drawing of the Rage Across Tampa pack, but on the flyer there, you can see the variety of other artwork opportunities that she offers. She does very realistic-looking art. She does art in the style of Has Been Hotel. She also has her own stylings. She is a multi-talented, amazing individual. So 10K, you get your free piece of artwork from Champ's Tramps. So we'll put you in touch with her. But for our giveaway tonight, you could also get a piece of artwork of any character, not limited to VTM. It could be D&D. It could be any other setting that you'd like. She'll do it for you in the style of your choosing. And so to enter into that giveaway tonight, all you have to do is put in the hashtag CHAMP, that's CHAMP, and you will be in the running for a piece of Champ's Tramps artwork, which I stand by is some of my favorite artwork so far that I've ever had made for me. So you should get on that. The other amazing part of this jam-packed episode tonight is that we are talking to Caff, also known as Caffeinatrixx, also known as one of my longest running friends at all in life. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I'm so excited to get into it with Calf and kind of catch up because we're both so busy these nights. We really only see each other at Storyteller meetings, so it's going to be a good opportunity to discuss our history as well as Calf's history with TTRPGs, with gaming, how I somehow convinced her to get involved with this crazy, insane project known as St. Pete by Night, as well as much, much more. But first, Calf, say hello. Introduce yourself properly.
Hey folks, I am Caffeinatrixx. You can find me pretty much just on TikTok at Caffeinatrixx with two X's. Um, I will say that it didn't actually take any convincing. Kent said, I got a thing. And I'm like, all right, what the fuck's the thing? And he's like, this thing. And I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it.
So, but that's the funny thing about it, about our relationship and about our connection, because we met about 25 years ago. I think we're about to hit our 25th anniversary of
24.
24th
Yeah.
anniversary of having known each other. And that's absolutely wild to me. Not only
Right.
how long it's been, since it feels like it was only yesterday, but kind of the wild road that we've been on. And it was actually gaming that brought us together. But before we get into that, before we get into the specifics of that, let's talk about your personal history with gaming, because if anybody read that profile while it was up on the screen, it said you kind of found gaming and TTRPGs and whatnot around the year 2000. So take me through like your history before that. Had you been exposed to TTRPGs in any fashion, and what was kind of your perception of it before actually dipping your toe in the pool?
So I actually was exposed a few years before, but I grew up in a very Christian household, so I was not allowed to play anything. Um, how Kent and I met was a live action role playing game called Canar, fantasy based, full contact, and I turned 18 in February of 2000. In June of 2000, we were at my grad party and we'd wrap things up. And I looked at my mom and said, hey, Canar's having a huge, like 10-day event and I'm going to dip. So I left. The grad party was over. My family had all left. Like I didn't just like leave in the middle of my party, but that was my first actual, um, my first LARP experience. We had started playing D&D a few months prior. Um, I found out years later. So when I was little, we used to have this thing we called the sick box, and anytime it had like jacks and these funny, weird shaped little dice and little like mini games. And anytime I was sick, I'd get to go play with the sick box. And I loved those dice; they were the coolest thing. And I didn't realize until I bought my first set of D&D dice that these were the original AD&D dice
Wow. Okay. Okay.
that had been lost by now, and I was so sad.
So it was like the original
Um,
dice that came with the game, or that? Yeah.
yes,
Okay. Wow.
yep, yep.
Those
And
are
my mom had
artifacts
always told
now.
me, dude, right? So I'm so mad that they are lost into the ether. And I remember asking my mom, like, well, what are these? And she's like, oh, they're dice for a game that your dad used to play. I found out like last year they were my mom's dice. My dad totally outed her. He's like, nope,
Ooh.
she used to play D&D too. Like, what the fuck?
She kept that secret for 20 plus years.
She did. Um, so yeah, that was my entertaining, like came from a line of gamers but didn't know it because at some point mom decided that D&D was evil and probably got swept up in the satanic panic. I don't know.
Quite likely, honestly, because that was about the time period for it, was around the AD&D era of
Yeah.
people starting to freak out about it, especially the more religious community. So what was your perspective of D&D and gaming before you actually like really truly got introduced to it? Like,
Mm.
because I know like for me it was just like one of those kind of cult things that, you know, stereotypically nerds got really into, which I was happy to brand myself several years later after hearing about it. But what was kind of your introduction to that whole kind of hobby, just the whole idea of it?
I don't think really it had any negative connotations. My entire, I guess I could say my entire friend group, because I had in high school, I had my drama club friends who have become my 20 plus years later, still friends with friends. And then I had a small handful of this little group of girls that were my friends that were like the normies.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't really have, like I said, I didn't have any negative connotation about it. I just thought it was this really cool thing that was something I wasn't allowed to do, which of course made me want to do it more. And it was just like being in a play, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and so Kanar, where we first met, which is an anagram, I think is the word for Knights and Nobles and Rogues, which is a live-action D&D LARP. It was actually my first event, too, that 10-day event. So we actually
Nice.
started at exactly the same time.
I thought you'd started earlier.
No, it was the exact same event. We came in the exact same event. And I know I ended up playing for like, give or take 5 years. I think you went for a while longer than that. But
Yeah, I played
yeah,
for about
so
10.
that was our introduction where we kind of started crossing paths, but it was actually Vampire the Masquerade where I feel like our friendship truly solidified. So kind of talk through what your experience was with Kanar a little bit at first, and then coming upon Vampire the Masquerade and what that kind of transition was like for you. Because I know it was a jarring one for me coming from D&D to Vampire, but I absolutely fell in love with Vampire because of it. But talk about your experience a little bit more.
So I started on D&D, as I think a lot of us do, and I've always been really blessed with good GMs. I hear the horror stories from people about the lack of safety tools and the really toxic and problematic tables, and especially as a woman, being a woman in gaming and just the horrible experiences. And I'm just like, I've lived such a wonderful and sheltered gamer life, because even though the bulk of that particular friend group is mask, I've never felt disrespected. I've never felt unsafe. Um, we never used formal safety tools back in the 2000.
They didn't
Not
exist. They just
all
didn't
right.
exist.
Yeah, they didn't really exist, but we were still doing check-ins with each other and making sure that the story's going where we want it to, and you're safe and you're comfortable. And hey, we've got this like romantic scene that might be a thing. Are we good with it? And along with that, with the good GMs, is even though we're playing D&D, which is super crunchy, it was still largely roleplay driven. Kanar was this amazing next level full immersion system, which is really cool. And I would love to go back. Now the bloom is off the rose. I would love to go back to those halcyon days, where I didn't know the toxicity in the game and the problematic people and the drama and the politicking. Because it was when I was just a player in my little bubble, it was great. It was so much fun. I remember walking home from somewhere, I don't remember the hell I was, after the event. It was like a day or two after the event. And I'd gotten spent 10 whole days in the woods, because I was just like, oh, we can sleep here? Cool. I got a tent. So 10 whole days, full immersion. And I'm walking through town and like checking over my shoulder because I'm certain something is going to do in the middle of town, like
Yeah.
my city
Absolutely.
town, not, just dead convinced after 10 days of being just fully immersed in this world that something is going to pop out behind me and try to stab me.
Now, this isn't meant to be an advertisement for Kanar, but to give some context to people, this was a organization, or is an organization, I believe it's still running in Michigan, that owned 40 acres of property in the middle of the woods in a middle of nowhere town. For outsiders' perspective, that's your hometown, so I won't say too much trash, but
Oh no, it's
middle
a
of
middle of
no.
nowhere. We're like a 2-horse town.
Yeah, you've got 2 horses instead of just the one. But it was by the Milan Dragway, which is a drag racing strip, and they owned 40 solid acres of land in the middle of the woods. And what they did is, since they owned it, they were able to build structures on it. They turned it into a not-for-profit organization. Like, they had been investing years and years and years. By the time we even came in, it had been going for a while before that.
Yeah.
And it was a fully immersive experience. Most of their events being from Friday to Sunday, 24 hours a day for those 3 days. And then once a year, they'd have these big 10-day events, which is what you and I both started on, where it was 10 straight days, day and night. You could sleep there if you wanted to, you could camp. You were in character the entire time you were on the field. It was truly a fully immersive experience, to the point that it did sometimes go home with you. Because I remember in Ann Arbor, all the paper boys there had these bright orange sashes that held their bags on, and that's
Yes.
how they denoted NPCs in the game. And usually, when you saw that orange sash, you knew it was time to fight. So my sleep deprived brain, after 10 days of being there, also was just like, oh shit, okay, what are we doing? And then I'm like, oh, I'm in a car in normal clothing in a
I can't
city.
fight the paper
Uh,
boy.
so, but they would pull out all the stops. They'd build structures. They
Mhm.
would put on makeup and costuming. I mean, it truly was a defining experience for my
Yeah.
gaming life, and I'm sure for yours as well. And I think that I agree with what you said. Like, being able to go back to that innocence of having not been involved, because we both served as staff there. We'd invested quite a bit of time and energy into it, and saw kind of behind the curtain as well of some of the more problematic behaviors and things that happened. But I can also say that if it wasn't for that experience, I don't think St. Pete would exist either. This game would exist either, because it taught me so much about running an open world kind of LARP style format, and the communal issues that can come up when you get a whole bunch of people together, and everything like
Mhm.
that. But for that context, yeah, that's how we met. That's how we spent several years connected, until a certain point where we became roommates for a while, and then so yeah, I mean, it was a amazing experience. But now let's talk about Vampire the Masquerade, because that kind of also got introduced to us similarly around the same time period. What was it
Mhm.
like for you? Because especially growing up in a more conservative, religious based household, this is kind of like, hey, what if it's the exact opposite, where it's like monsters and predatory behavior, and you're playing the bad people, the cursed people, and all this other kind of stuff. What was it like when did you
Mhm.
first hear about it, and what was it like for you kind of looking into it?
I think I first heard about it from my friends Jeff and Jeanette. I'm pretty sure Jeanette's was my very first game. I think it was her Dark Ages game, where I played a gangrel and fell in love with the gangrel. I I was raised in a household steeped in Christianity. Most of my mom's generation and older are still Christian, but very, very Christian. One of my siblings is still Christian, but like, trying to think how to word this in a way that's not going to make the evangelical Christ-like Christian.
Okay. Okay.
um, I became a tree hugging dirt worshiper when I was like 15. So I had no religious problems with vampire. I fell in love. This is monsters. This is horror. I'm a huge horror fan, like proper horror, not the cheap jump scary bullshit. Like, work for it. Around the same time, I also discovered Legend of the Five Rings and Seventh Sea, and these D10 systems are written specifically to lend themselves more to role play. And even though I had these GMs that, even with D&D, were still playing pretty heavy role play, this just took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah,
So,
and then yeah.
oh, go ahead, continue,
Oh,
please.
I was gonna say, from there, I know I played a couple other games. My memory is trash. Um, and then you had moved in, and we started playing your game, We also had a side game with another of the roommates, I think, for a hot minute.
Yeah, we did.
And then we briefly, I can't remember if you were still there or not for that at that point, but we had a friend Eric who ran an Us vampire game, which we learned was a bad idea because shit got real creepy, like real fast. And I'm like,
Yep.
nope, we're done.
I think everybody's ran that game, whether it's of D&D or Vampire or something, where it's like, what if it was me? And then you're like, oh, that opened a whole bunch of doors I didn't need to open right now.
Nope.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and I think Vampire is worse for that. Like D&D is this like very clearly fantasy setting. Vampire is, you are here in modern day in real time. You're just undead. And then we'd have like these weird coincidences that would happen that would mirror what had happened in game. We're like, all right, no, we're done. This is like the Ouija board of gaming. You don't do this shit.
Oh no, we've opened Pandora's box. So obviously here on After Dark, we open up questions to the chat at any time. So if you are watching live right now, feel free to enter your questions into the chat for Caff, and I'll be happy to pass those along as we go. But yeah, so we had started a campaign, and I feel like I'd run a couple of vampire kind of, start-stop games leading up to that one. But that one specifically, I believe, if my memory is not failing me completely, ended up spanning like 2 or 3 years because that story just kept going. And we went through, we started in Dark Ages. I think we we went in Victorian for a little bit and then ended up in Modern Knights. And that's probably still one of my biggest epic chronicles preceding St. Pete by Night. But I remember we had started that game with nobody knowing what they were going to end up being. They weren't going to get a clan. They didn't get to pick their clan. They started out designing a person, which is also modeled my philosophy about character creation. It started with a person, and then I embraced you, and I chose your clans, and I kind of threw you into the deep of it, and we were kind of modeling ours after pirates, and you ended up starting out as this, like, fancy kind of noble woman, and then I turned you into a Nosferatu, and the story from there, like, was just absolutely incredible, and the way you took it all in stride and played with it was incredible. But one of the things I remember is you kept a journal through that game, and I remember a particular moment where you had discovered your sire had been killed, and you showed me the journal entry, and it's still like completely plastered in my mind of Face's dead because his name was Shitface, and that whole thing just stands out in my mind more than anything else from that game. And it showed me kind of the emotional impact storytelling can have. But talk about it from your perspective, kind of us gaming together in a serious game for the first time and everything that came with that.
That is definitely one of my favorite gaming experiences. I think it was a phenomenal game. I loved the start as a person and get embraced. Actually, I have 2 big goals that I want to do as a storyteller. One is that you're going to start as humans. You're going to get embraced with how you think, or how I think as a storyteller, your character is acting. And of course, if people have like no blah, blah, blah clan,
right,
we'll avoid that. My other, and this could be a whole chronicle if it lasts long enough, is you die, and now we play Wraith.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
These are the 2 big things I want to do.
I mean, you could even start with Hunter, then go to Vampire, then go to Wraith, because it does allow you to kind of walk through those steps. Because, you start with monster hunters, and then the monsters get you, and then you're a monster yourself, and then, of course, that leads to something. But yeah, it is such a cool journey, and I loved that nobody knew what they were going to end up being, that nobody knew how this was going to all shake out, and that everybody kind of took to their clans, even if it was ones that they didn't normally play. They took to it like ducks to water, and that game lasted so much longer than I even expected it to at the time. I was just kind of toying around with the concept, but that was, I think, my first serious chronicle, long-lasting chronicle I'd ever done. And it was absolutely the coolest.
It
So
really was. And it definitely, the ability to get into, I guess not really the ability, the kind of almost forced into a clan that you've never played. Because, like I said, I fell in love with Gangrel. I played a couple Gangrel. I think I have a Toreador somewhere. I'm pretty sure my Venfru from your 20s campaign was after that.
yep.
Um, so getting thrown into a clan that you don't have familiarity with, that you probably normally wouldn't choose, is really cool. Kind of gets you out of that box you put yourself in.
Absolutely.
And definitely the emotional impact that gaming can have. When I wrote that entry, and I still have it because I have all of my notes, it's written across both pages of the journal, and you can see the tear stains because I was crying writing that because it hit me so hard. And I wrote my notes after a session, and that sat with me so hard.
Yeah, it's absolutely one of my favorite gaming moments. It's what's kept me so into it even to this very day, is the fact that storytelling can have such an emotional response, that it can, touch us all in various emotional ways, and that it can kind of reach that point that it's more than a book, it's more than a movie, like it's an experience. And I think that's what really reaches out to me about TTRPGs as a whole, is that if you invest yourself properly in a healthy way, you can really have a transformative experience through it all. So, what, for those who don't know, Caff is in the mental health care industry. Do you think TTRPGs or TTRPGing had some kind of impact in you heading in that direction and kind of choosing to make that your career and your profession? And if so, how?
In me heading in that direction, no. I headed in this direction because I am crazy. Um,
You have to
it's
be
the
to be into
trauma.
that.
I mean, I do tell people it always entertains me because I am a person with lived experiences and my own diagnoses working in the mental health field. So when my clients or my patients are like, "Well, you're a social worker, you're a therapist, you're fine," I'm like, "We are some of the most fucked up people you know. We just present well."
That's fair.
So gaming didn't help me get in this field. However, what gaming has done, and I'm going to hop on my little soapbox for just a minute, is it has helped me work through some of my own personal issues. And if you do this, permission, right? Consent is key. If you are using gaming therapeutically, make sure you are transparent with your table, your storyteller. Everybody's on board with this, because it is not fair to make somebody your personal therapy group without their permission.
It
But
happens
done
more
with
than I'd
permission.
like.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Done with permission, and preferably with the backing of a mental health professional that you're seeing regularly as well. Gaming can be incredibly therapeutic. Like I said, it helped me work through some of my past issues. It's helped me become more confident. I think my big moment where I realized, and this was kind of gaming specific, but also kind of gaming adjacent. I used to be kind of shy and quiet. I never really put myself out there much. I was always the person just kind of like hanging out watching. And I realized I want to be the gregarious person that makes a presence in the room. And I could see all of, several other of my friends were that person. Like, I want to be that. How do I be that? I am way too self-conscious. I worked at our local Ren fair for years at our, excuse me, so sorry, at our stockade. And you put me in a dress and a bodice, and I suddenly become the most outgoing person in the world, because part of that was you had to hawk.
Yeah.
So I had to walk around and like get customers. I'm like, so I'm just going to pretend to be her until I become her. So I role played myself until I became I role played the me I wanted to be until I became that me. And there is research that shows that there is a lot of therapeutic value to gaming. I actually run a D&D group at my work. I work in an inpatient psych hospital. I run a D&D group. There's another one of our occupational therapists that has training in trauma-based gaming. I had an opportunity a couple months ago to go to a small like weekend convention in Wisconsin, and I ran into a group called Mana Oasis, and they are a trauma therapy organization. So they do, I think, largely D&D. It's mostly they serve vets and first responders, but it's not limited to that. That just happens to be the people they serve. And they have a full staff of clinicians, and they don't have psychiatrists, they don't have prescribers, but they have like a social worker and a counselor, peer supports, and their whole thing is trauma therapy through gaming. So really good. That's my small soapbox.
Yeah, and there's a lot of kind of programs that are starting up based out around that. I know they're doing D&D and stuff at schools now using counselors. I know that social workers will often use maybe not D&D specifically, but role-playing based kind of tactics for those kind of services, and it seems to become more and more widely accepted and widely available to people, because I know a lot of the people in our community, a lot of people that we've met either through TikTok or whatever, were exposed to gaming because of the pandemic. But you and I came from like the dark ages of gaming, where it was still very much a niche thing. Kind of, I think Kanar helped with this, seeing how many other people
Yeah.
enjoyed it. But for the most part, it was always hard to find people who were into this kind of stuff. Gaming books were usually limited to like one bookshelf and like a Riders or a Borders. You know, it was
Yeah.
very much a hidden thing. And now to see it being used in so many creative ways, to see a D&D stream being, you know, hugely successful and having their own animated series now and all kinds of stuff, it's like it's really kind of come out of the dark and been to be a widely popular thing, because I think everybody can relate to, you know, pretending to be something they're not. It's something we would do as children, but just amplified a little bit more and made a little more complicated, but the concept is still very much the same.
Oh yeah.
So do you think that role playing, like, what do you think role playing does for an individual as a therapy technique, other than just like maybe working through past trauma? Like, what do you think are some of the best lessons individuals can take from role playing into their real lives?
Um, it that's kind of a really broad question to answer, because it's going to vary from person to person. So some people, it could just be coming out of the shell or finding that sense of community. I love that the pandemic has made virtual gaming a broader space. I've met so many people through the server that I have friends from all around the world. I never would have met in any other capacity. And getting to see, especially since I've become one of the old people in the group, which blows me away, because when we were in our 20s,
Oh, I know.
we had the 40-year-old friends, and now we are the 40-year-old friends. I didn't agree to this.
No. No.
Yeah, but it's been really interesting to see the people get to come together, that normally would not have had any exposure to each other. This sense of this community that is formed, that people desperately need, especially a lot of people who get into gaming are, they have a mental health experience of some sort. They feel ostracized, they want to escape. And it can feel very alone, especially the younger you are.
Absolutely.
So it can give that sense of community. Gaming can also give us a safe space to explore some trauma. So even though your character is going through the same thing you have, not, you know, exact same, but similar vein, I can walk away from this. If this becomes too much, I can get up and I can physically get up and leave, or we can stop game. Whereas if I'm trying to deal with this in my real life, it's my life.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I get to cope with this as partially removed. It also can help with interpersonal skills. The group that I run D&D in is actually my social skills group. So we work on collaborative play and making sure that we do step up, step back. So not everybody has an opportunity to participate, and nobody gets all the spotlight. Nobody feels like they're shoved back into a corner. Critical thinking, um, cooperation, and collaboration. So it has a lot of different benefit depending on what it is you need.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the biggest things I've taken away, and I'm by no means a therapist, though I've been in plenty of therapy and I falsely advertise that I can sometimes read people. Um, Empathy, honestly. Like, one of the biggest things
Mhm.
I've learned from TTRPGs is empathy, because especially if you put the challenge to yourself to play someone who is not you, that you don't relate to, you really have to put yourself in their shoes and think in a different angle on situations than you do normally. And so I often constantly try to challenge myself to come up with characters that are not me, and especially through storytelling, I have to do that all the time, because you have to have a vast and well populated world of NPCs with different viewpoints. But being able to kind of step outside myself and feel the emotions of someone who I do not relate to, and having to kind of think, well, why did they think the way they do, and what makes them tick the way it does, and what is so different about that than me and my situations. I think I've really, really gotten a good sense of empathy from TTRPGs, and I think that's, again, like all the tools you listed, one of the many kind of uses in a positive way that TTRPGs can be. But there's also the opposite side of the coin, the negative ways. So I'd be interested to hear from your perspective, kind of how, we talked about the positives of gaming. What are some of the dangers of TTRPGs, from your personal or your professional perspective, that people have to kind of watch out for? What are some of the risks that come with TTRPGs, in that field?
We'll say my professionally informed personal perspective.
That
Uh,
works. Yeah.
I am off the clock.
Fair.
Um, Avoidance, I think, is one of the big ones. People can throw themselves. We've seen it time and time again. I certain we have been it ourselves,
My
where
20s.
it's right. Um, my character doesn't have the problems I do, so I throw myself headfirst into this game. This game becomes my life, because in this game, I'm not dealing with my issues. I get to be a hero. I get to be somebody who's effective. Where a lot of people feel very powerless. I at least anecdotally, I've not done any research, not read any
No, you're
research,
right.
but anecdotally, I think there are a lot of people in the gaming community who feel powerless in their real lives. And so they have these characters that have a great deal of power, either socially, politically, physically, what have you. And so they escape into that. And so when things happen to that character, it becomes devastating for them. And that's where we get, and as we learned as a team a few months ago, there are two different definitions of bleed.
Yeah.
When I have ever talked about bleed, or been in conversations, I've understood it as the bad things. This is where, like, if I'm playing a character and that character gets killed or humiliated or whatever, and I'm walking around just devastated or angry, that's bad bleed.
Yeah.
If it sticks with you. When we were talking about as we were waiting for Bloodstained Love to come out, we were talking about it as a team, we realized that there is also the Nordic definition, or they call it bleed, um, where it's you are so immersed in that character, but it's not unhealthy. So, like, one of my other favorite gaming experiences, we were playing Star Wars Edge of the Empire. And my friend Laura and I was the captain. She was my engineer. She was my engineer. And we had gotten into an argument in character that involved her and I yelling at each other in the room, and me getting up from the table and almost to the door of the condo before I realized, like, wait, I don't actually have to leave. She was mad at me for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And like had to keep, like, she had to at one point finally she's like, all right, we need to talk this out. Like, I need to talk this out because I need to get back into Laura headspace. Um, and that is a good example of like a little bit of the good and the bad. Like, right, so you're in it, you are so in it, you're experiencing these emotions, but you're able to walk away from it. And she had, it sat with her for a couple of days, but she was able to go, wait, hold on. I need to we need to have a friend interaction so that I can break out of this.
Yeah. And I mean, you and I have seen friendships and families fall apart over TTRPG kind of stuff, especially in the Canar circuit that we were talking about, like where it is very immersive and it is very real and you're looking them in the face. Like, it's not through monitors or across a table with dice. Like, you are actually in that moment with them. It can get very, very intense, and it can have those kind of fallout and repercussions. And I know there are people who still don't talk to each other 10, 20 years later over stuff that happened in a game. And
Yep.
yeah, it's very real.
Yeah, and you get your I don't think I'm going to surprise anybody. You have your predatory prey situations that happen a lot. And for folks who aren't as aware of it or don't have as much skill in assessing a situation as a whole, not necessarily going to realize that this is what's happening, that especially if it's somebody who is taking advantage of in-game feelings, because again, you're in the moment, even virtually. We see people in the moment, and there's a romance between two characters or a deep friendship between two characters that then gets translated out, or at least on one person's side feels like it's translated out to out of character.
Absolutely.
Yep, and we see that a lot too, and I've had that happen. One of like my big examples when I was running like rules classes and stuff back in the prevamp, talking about that kind of bleed stuff, was when we were playing Canar. A friend of mine had started playing. We got on great in character. Now we're friends now. At the time, we weren't, but our characters were really close. And so out in the parking lot one day, I think, I can't remember if I was coming off field or I was getting out of my car, but either way, he was in the parking lot. I saw him from behind, went up, gave him a big bear hug from behind, and he whipped around and said, "Do not fucking touch me. We are not friends out of game." And I was like, you know what? That's fair. That you are absolutely right. And that really hit me in the face with a brick, as it like kind of just like, oh, these are separate things. And like, that, but you don't know it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people want that connection so badly that they don't even recognize that they're still seeking it out in game. Like, they're still seeking out a real life connection in game when these are fictitious. Like, they do take that kind of energy with them, and they forget that, like, it's like being in a play. You might be in a play where two people are best friends in the play, but they hate each other behind the scenes. But when they're on stage, they're going to do, good performers can put on a good performance anywhere. And that, yeah, it can be very, very, very troublesome and problematic. And that reality check hurts, but is also sometimes really, really necessary, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to transition to talking about your kind of journey into becoming a storyteller and DM. But first, I want to throw back over to our giveaway and to our sponsor for tonight, Champs Tramps, who is our newest partnered vendor. She has been very, very generous in offering up one of her color art pieces for free to anybody who puts, or to the winner of the drawing of who puts in the hashtag champ in the chat. So we'll make that drawing at the end of the show tonight. But if you put hashtag champ in the chat, you will be in the running for one of those amazing, amazing art pieces that she does. You can see the chibi style on the right there, but on the left you can see the very various other styles that she can kind of create for you. So hashtag champ in the chat, and you'll be in the running for one of those free art pieces tonight. We also gave away a free art piece to our 500th follower here on Twitch. 10K in the server, so there is a free art piece from Champs Tramps coming to 10K as soon as I can put the two of them in touch. So I want to ask a couple of questions from the chat that came in. First one comes from Fox, who asks, what's a moment that stuck with you as a player in any game that has influenced your storytelling style?
Style overall. I don't think there's a particular moment that sticks with me as far as style goes. Definitely as far as like things I want to do, the moment in your game makes me want to run that same sort of scenario. I think as a whole, my entire gaming experience informs how I prefer to play. I'm role play driven. I'm a fully collaborative storyteller. I like high drama, full immersion. I really love that both of my tables, when we drop into character, like that's it. We largely stay there. There might be a couple of breaks here and there, but it's in character. It's people acting as their characters, not I do this, I do this.
Right.
And I just, yeah, the wanting to be as good a storyteller or GM as those who have gone before me.
Yeah, and you've had some really, really good ones because we, share the same friend group and did for many, many years. And like, big shout out to Jeff, big shout out to several of the others that have kind of come across our way. Storytelling for us both individually or, together. It's been a very, very big experience and very teaching experience because, you saw the things that they did well, and then you saw the things that maybe they struggled with and that you knew you would have to work on as soon as you got into their shoes. Our next question comes from Mimic, also known as Bomb Clancy. Is there a
Our
clan you
name's
could
Bob now.
is there a clan you could go without playing or playing again?
Probably Ventru. I think I've gained a little more respect for Ventru with having to deal with them, exposure to them so much in St. Pete. But I've played one Ventru and I hated every minute of it. I love the game. That's the sad thing. It was your 20s game. I loved the game. It was a fantastic concept. We had two separate groups that were being run in the same world that were actively opposed to one another. And I just hate Ventru.
You're just not into the politics, power struggle kind of.
No, not here for it.
That's fair. Double Magus asks, is there anything from an older edition of the games that you miss in the 5th edition, the current edition?
That is hard for me to answer because my memory is so terrible.
Well, I will say, maybe this will fuel you a little bit. I do miss Bloodlines. They do talk about it a little bit in Hikata, which is becoming quickly your clan of expertise and choice. But I do like that they do touch on it a little bit there. But I did like the idea of Bloodlines in other clans. I did like the Toreador Bloodlines. I did like, the variations on the clan. But I also understood the need for simplifying and streamlining. I did understand that, like, we're bringing in a new generation of players. They didn't grow up with the old, like, soft cover book, and, like, they didn't really get to come into the game and catch up with it. They instead are starting out brand new and fresh, and to keep this from being overwhelming, we're going to simplify it as best as possible and make it kind of very straightforward. But I do miss that. I definitely miss clan-specific disciplines. I loved Demontation as a discipline for Malkavians. I loved that each clan had something that made them special, and they've kind of stripped that away. We try to keep some of it in St. Pete by Night, but for the most part, we're trying to also accept that this is the direction they're going and open it up a little bit more. But I did really, really love that clans had something that made them unique, so that if you chose that clan, you were adopting this very unique kind of ability. And they obviously had some that were shared between the clans, but for the most part, like, they had something, Serpentis being an example. But yeah, they had something that was just theirs, and made them unique and special in that way. Do either of those things kind of stir up in your mind anything that you miss from the older editions?
Yeah, definitely the clan specific disciplines. I will stay off my player's guide soapbox. Um, you can't be a special snowflake if everybody's a special snowflake. I get, on the one hand, I love that V5 simplified a lot of things. I think that's great. I think it makes it more approachable. Um, and I get to a point where they're going with everybody can do everything, because that's kind of the, and I honestly, I don't know if it's really what the player base as a whole wants, or if that's just what the like older generation assumption is of the quote unquote participation trophy crowd, because that's kind of what it feels like sometimes. Like, I played like I played like 3 sessions of a fourth ed D&D campaign and was done. I'm like, everything is cookie cutter. Everybody can do everything. There is nothing that makes anybody unique other than class name. And that's it.
Right.
And the player's guide had that same kind of feel. Like, this is no longer clan specific. Everybody can access this. And I honestly, I don't know. I don't know if this is what the player base at large wants, or if this is what an older generation thinks the younger generation wants.
I think there's a little bit of both. I think that because when we started playing Vampire, multi-classing in D&D was kind of new with third edition 3.5. Like, it was just kind of coming in, and now it's been over 20 years since that, which is horrifying. But that's kind of the norm now, is that you can kind of, if you want to get a little bit of everything, you can. You're never going to be great at anything, but you're going to at least have access, and people are making these kind of like unique builds and everything like that, that, can allow them to dip into various different pools. And so I think there's a little bit of that reflected in 5th edition Vampire, but I also think story-wise, it's actually starting to make a lot more sense the more I think about it, because it is about the younger vampires inheriting everything from the old, that bloodlines are kind of falling apart, and that the blood is getting diluted and kind of crossing over a lot more. And so the things that kept those firm boundaries between clans in like Dark Ages in the early 90s and whatnot have really started to erode away. Like the Sabbat has pretty much all but fallen apart. The pyramid is broken. Like, all of these features are allowing for a little bit more crossover between clans and a little bit more bleed of abilities across the spectrum. So I can see an in-game explanation for it. I don't know if it's necessarily the right direction to go, but there's a bigger emphasis on Thin Bloods. There's a bigger emphasis on Caitiff. Like, there really are showing that those old dynamics are kind of going out the window. All those old things are kind of going by the wayside. So I can see it. I guess it's kind of a wait and see. I wish they would give us more lore explanation for the decisions they make mechanically than they do. But, maybe that's something that they'll get to eventually. But yeah, I do think it's a bit of both. I do think it is a little bit of the players do want the ability to have a lot more crossover, a lot more kind of widespread uniqueness to their characters, other than just the roleplay style or the roleplay base, details. And I do think it is also the older generation kind of being like, fine, you want to be everything here, you can be everything, like, just do it.
Right.
So yeah, I could see an argument for both. Mimic asks another question. Oh yeah, go ahead before I get to that question.
Clan splats. I miss clan splats.
I miss the clan books like crazy. I really hope those come back around. I really, really,
Yes.
really do. But yeah, that I definitely miss. So Mimic asks another question: what clan do you think would benefit if they added another layer of leadership like Ventru and Tremere? So for those who don't know, the Ventru and the Tremere, they're a lot more organized. They have titles and roles and levels of power going down the line. Whereas some of the other clans are a little bit more loosey goosey, a little bit more kind of fluid. So what kind of clans or what clans do you think could benefit from a little bit more structure or at least a better breakdown of their inner politics?
Hmm. That's a hard one to answer because they all, in their own way, they do have their structure. It may not be as formal, but like the gangrel, they don't have this recognized hierarchy, but they have that sort of primitive-ish like respect for the people who can prove they're worth following. Um, the Hakata, of course, have their organized disorganization. Fuck the Giovanni, because you got to say it at least once.
Okay, of course, of course.
um, of course, Ministry have a whole cult. I don't know as much about the Tory and the Malk hierarchies.
So the Malkavians, the Toreador do have. They used to actually break up into three branches with like the artistes and the poseurs and everything like that. So
Mm.
they do have a hierarchy that's better defined in their old clan books. The Malkavians, I kind of love that there is no set way, that there is
It
no.
makes sense.
It makes sense. It absolutely makes sense for them as a clan. I would say, and this is kind of interesting. I would say the Zemitzi, funny enough, because I feel like the Zemitzi get lumped in with the Sabbat a lot, as they should. They were
Mhm.
primarily Sabbat, but in reality, they adopted a lot of more Lasombra based structure for the Sabbat than they did Zemitzi. Zemitzi just kind of went along with what the Lasombra were doing, since Lasombra obviously flip side of Ventru. They kind of were like with the priests and the packs and all that kind of stuff. They kind of just were okay with it and went with it, but I would have loved to see more inner clan structure of the Zemitzi and how that has kind of transitioned into this new era where the Sabbat is kind of no more. The Zemitzi inner majority are kind of all, for the most part, gone, except for those few hangers on. And I'd love to have seen more about their overall structure outside of the Sabbat. They had the Sabbat, but what were they like before and after the Sabbat? What kind of did the clan do amongst themselves? I think that's one that would have been very, very interesting to see more of. Uh,
I agree. I think it'd be interesting to see a structure in Bruja. I think at least lore wise, because you still have your philosophers, and unlike common belief, your Bruja are not just your meatheads; they are your your social justice warriors, right? They are out here for the people, um, and it would be really interesting to see some lore come around that and how the different subsets, as it were, of Bruja fit into those pieces.
yeah, I think with the Bruja, it's very interesting because they were the philosophers, meaning that they were thinking about and pondering about the grandiose nature of things. I think the new Bruja are just new. I say it like it's new, it's not new, but the Bruja now are acting on their
Mm-hmm.
philosophies. They're not just, sitting back pondering like true Bruja. They are actually taking it and implementing the changes they want to see. They're forcing kind of their philosophies to become fact or become more than just philosophy. And so I think that's there is still a philosophical element that does get taken for granted. Like your street profits or your gang leaders or whatever the case may be. Like you can still take those elements of like I'm gonna be the change I want to see, not
Mhm.
just think about the changes I want to see. And so yeah, actually I think that's a great answer about the Bruja and kind of how they are now from a clan perspective, especially with the Bruja leaving the Camarilla. What kept them in the Camarilla so long is a big one for me because they're like, are they trying to change the power from within? Like, what's the
Mhm.
reasoning behind that, and what more detail on what was the straw that broke the camel's back that made them leave, that made Theo Bell do what he did. I'd love to see them go into more detail about that. They've
Yes.
teased us with so much new lore, but only given us like a paragraph or a few sentences about it. And I'm like, no, I want the
Mhm.
whole book. Like, I want the novel about Theo Bell going and doing what he did. And like, I want so much more detail than they're giving us,
Yes.
and it's killing me. Um,
Yes. I fully agree. I had a rant about that the other day.
yes, 100%. So, changing gears, Tumultus asks, what werewolf tribe interests you the most?
That is also a really good question because I am not familiar with werewolf. I apparently don't remember this. Actually, played in a werewolf campaign many, many years ago. I only know this because I was going through and reorganizing. I was reorganizing. I was looking for something and found a werewolf character sheet. I'm like, oh, apparently I've done this.
Apparently, I played.
Um,
It was
that was a
probably
thing.
Jeremy's. If I'm thinking about it,
Probably.
it was Jeremy. Yeah, because he was really big on werewolf, and we were all like, "Vampire's
Hmm.
still good," but he wanted to play werewolf, and so I think that must have been that game because I remember us
It
all
had to
going
have
up
been.
there and playing that a couple of times, and I was so staunch vampire. I was like, "No, I'll play a thin blood vampire. Damn it." I don't want to play a werewolf, and now I'm running a werewolf chronicle.
Right.
But yeah, I just was not in the mindset to shift over to werewolf at the time and learn a whole new system.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that must have been that game. But that game only ran like 2, 3 sessions at best, I think. So I
Yeah,
don't think we
it
even really
was
got
pretty
into it.
short. Had
Yeah.
them pretty short. I think I am trying to remember the pack that the I did in the one in your one shot. Um,
Oh yeah,
that pack seemed
you.
interesting. Definitely the spirit. What's the starts with an A? The type of because you have your pack and then you have like what do you do?
Oh, are you talking about like the spirits, or are you talking about like the septs?
Might be the sept,
The sept is
maybe.
like the overall collection of packs, like the
Oh no,
local.
that's not it then.
Oh,
The
auspice. You're auspice. Yes,
yes,
thank you,
yes,
chat. Thank you, Crafty, specifically. Yes, your auspice, your moon phase. Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
See, not a werewolf player.
Right.
I don't remember things.
Right. The auspice. Yeah, I think that the packs are cool. Having learned more about them and really gotten into werewolf, I've found an affinity for it that I have not felt since I discovered vampire. And I love the way they've redone werewolf in fifth edition. It's much more accessible for my brain. But yeah, I would say that I think it was Silver Fangs that you played, a Silver Fang
That
Right
seems right.
Master. Um, but yeah, it's a good try. They're all good in my mind for one reason or another. But yeah, we'll get you up to speed on Werewolf eventually.
Yeah. Well, that
So
was my original plan was to run a werewolf table after the new year, and then I picked up an unexpected second vampire table, and I don't have time in my life to run three tables.
no, no. So let's talk about storytelling. We've answered a bunch of questions from the chat, but I want to get back to that. What pushed you from wanting to be a player to running games? Excuse me. So what was it? When did you first get the itch to be like, I could do this. Like I'm gonna try and tell a story. I'm gonna try and run a game. What made you want to make that leap from player to storyteller or DM or whatever the case was?
So I think the seed was planted when my friend Laura. So I have what most people would probably consider a nightmare. I It's just my brain telling me wonderful stories. My brain likes to play horror movies in my head. Um, and I think it's great. I've described several dreams over the years. Everything from like being chased by mummies to being trapped into deals with demons and interdimensional teleporting dinosaurs. And my friend Laura's like, you need to make this a campaign. You need to write a story around your dreams. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I could run like almost like a Buffyverse kind of episodic.
Monster of the Week kind of style before there was a Monster of the Week game, but yes.
Right. And so like I kind of rolled that around in my head for a while, but I've always been really intimidated because two of our most I would say accomplished and definitely smartest, hardest to fool with puzzle GMs are in my gaming circle. I'm like, I'm never going to live up to this. I'm going to bore the shit out of them. And so like, I don't know what to do with this. And finally, one day I bit the bullet. I still have not run my dreams as any sort of campaign, but I did figure like, I'll start with D&D and a campaign. It's already written out for me. I don't have to come up with my own shit. Because that was one of my other concerns is like, if you give me a jumping off point, I can run. You give me a story prompt, I can run with it all day long. Make me come up with a story. I'm like, what's my name? How did I get here? So I ran Witchlight for our girls in our group for a little while. And
that was just around pandemic era too, so it's recent for you, because I remember you talking about that game and getting started in that game. So you really only have dipped your toes into that pool within the last like 2-3 years. It's after 20 plus years of gaming.
Yeah, I think about 3 years or so now. I ran Kids on Bikes, which was our first transition into gaming for my social skills group. I started out in Magic, and we finished Magic, and I'm like, all right, what do you guys want to do? And they're like, we want to play D&D. And I'm like, okay, one of you knows how to play D&D. Only one of you has ever gamed before. Let's start with Kids on Bikes, because it's a super stripped down, at times almost too stripped down system. And they took to it like fish to water. It was great. And then we transitioned over to D&D. Storytelling for Vampire, this is my first experience here in the server. And I've been toying with it. I've been toying with the idea for a while, stepping up before we knew the revamp was going to be a thing. We had a lot of people in the server who, even when we had our full ST team, there was only like 6 of you.
At most, ever, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And we were down to 3 by the end, which is a lot for 60 active players. So there were a lot of folks who were feeling a little left behind. They weren't part of the main plot. They weren't getting a lot of attention outside of like their clan meetings. And so I said, all right, I want to run personal stories. Throw me all their backgrounds. I want to run personal plot. And so that's what I was going to do. And then the revamp happened. So I kept with I'm going to storytell. And I was thinking about like, okay, what do I want to run? We've had a lot of high fantasy stuff. So I run just like chill. And I'm not going to go into detail because I know at least one of my players is watching right now. But like, I just want something mundane. This is, we're not, zero shade to Barra and his mages, because I fucking love that plot. But we're not, world-eating mages. We're just basic. And so that plot came easy to me, because I was thinking about that, and that just kind of like steamrolled one thing after another, and I've got a plot. And then when I picked up Graveyard Shift, they had, shout out to you guys if any of you guys are out here, phenomenal group. I don't know any of these people, or didn't know any of these people until we started. They came into the server. They're looking for group, or looking for story blurb, included a fucking resume. Like, they had a link.
We called them the rock stars
show.
when they first came in, because they were so ready to go, organized, had previous samples of games they'd done. Like they came in fully prepared as a group
Hmm.
to take on a table, and it was amazing.
Yep. And I was like, look, I was only planning to run one, and I don't have plot for them, but I want these people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm so glad. I'm so glad that they had me on their list, and that I hope are having fun. They seem like they're having fun. They tell me they're having fun. I hope they're not just lying to me on a niceness. But I struggled with a story for them, and so we'd talked a little bit about, like, we talked in the team, and then I talked with them about, we're doing sort of a hospital drama kind of thing. So they don't have so much a big overarching plot. They have lots of little plots. Um, I don't think I actually answered your question. I don't remember your question anymore. The brain squirrels went this way.
Yeah, I guess it was just like what encouraged you to take this on, which
Mm.
was your dreams, and kind of like that you would have the stories in your head already, and that you just wanted to find a medium to put them out on.
Mm.
So let's talk about St. Pete specifically, which you kind of started talking about your current tables, but let's talk about the transition from first iteration to second iteration. I want to touch on both of your characters, uh, in Leanna and Amethyst, because those were two diametrically opposed characters as well in a lot of ways.
Very much so.
But what was it? I mean, obviously, you were doing me a solid by joining the game and joining the project and joining the team right out the gate, being one of our day one mods who now is a storyteller. What, and you said stepping up, you wanted to handle personal stories a little bit more, and then the revamp
Mhm.
happened, and that's where we went there. I guess, what about, I'm trying to think of a question here. Now I've lost myself in the question asking process. Well,
This is
let's
what
talk about
happens
the
when you put
characters.
ADHD years in a
Screw
row.
it. Let's just talk about the characters.
Okay.
So you started with Leanna, and I remember your character finalization process. I remember the conversations we had. You chose Gangrel, which you said was your kind of heart clan at the time.
Hmm.
And Leanna was right out the gate. I knew she was going to be a mover and shaker kind of everything, because you were one of the very few at the time people who had played vampire before, who had a strong understanding of vampire, and that kind of showed through the way you played, being, mom of Clan Gangrel, to Shug slash Burnham's dad of Clan Gangrel, or grandpa of Clan Gangrel, depending on whose perspective. um, and she quickly rose up to the ranks to being keeper of Elysium, and then she took a trip to Tampa, and that is where
Fucking
we
Tampa.
had to say goodbye to Leanna. But talk me through, kind of from your player perspective, in retrospect now, what that first iteration experience was like for you playing Leanna.
So funny enough, Leanna was not supposed to be a mover and shaker. She was supposed to be this, like, begrudging, I'm here, um, I'll help my pack, my clan, but I don't really give a shit. She was a hardcore. She should have taken the Xavier lore sheet, because she was very much a Xavier was right. Fuck the cam. Um, she was she had been born in St. Pete, lived there her whole life, was embraced in St. Pete, and then, when the Gangrel leader left and her sire left, and Shug came in, her sire said, "Stay here, help him with the clan." Um, and that's how she became his Tanist. And mostly, I think it, not mostly, I think Mama Gangrel started with Ruth.
And
And
ended
then
with
just
Ruth.
really and ended with Ruth. Um, and yeah, she definitely became clan mom, to a point that I didn't even realize, until after Leanna died, and Jolly Yellow Nerd, who played
Mason.
Mason, I'm like, it's an M, it's not Morgan, who played Mason, was trying to find Kipling so that he could Ghoul Kipling himself, and keep him from going through this awful experience. And he was making TikToks about it, and I'm like, I didn't realize that Leanna had that much of an impact on Mason.
Everyone in that clan. I think that was one of the biggest kind of moments for that clan as a whole, was that whole trip to Tampa and coming back without Leanna. And I think that that really did kind of was one of the defining moments of Clan Gangrel finally being like, nope, we're done with Tampa. We want nothing to do with them. We're siding with St. Pete in this, because that was kind of the story of Gangrel in those early
Mm-hmm.
days, was like, well, they're trying to stay kind of out of it. They're trying to stay detached from all this and stay neutral. But then things started to heat up, and it was like they clearly picked a side and chose St. Pete. And I think that solidified that choice for sure. Even though I think their minds were kind of made up before then, they really
Right.
solidified that, or that solidified that choice. So yeah, they were. I mean, it was a big thing for that clan, and Leanna was a big part of that.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. And yeah, definitely she knew at some point, and I think she may have known this. She definitely knew it before um Ruth and her brother stuff happened, that she was going to die for Ruth one day.
yeah,
And that just was what it was.
yeah, and even then, I mean, even before that, I think Leanna really made an impression with the raid on the verandas, and the that kind of. And we're not even gonna open up that wound because that was a whole thing. But I think that, but her taking the lead on that and really instrumentally organizing it and executing that, with the whole city behind her, quite literally. For anybody who attended that event, quite literally.
Yeah,
It
Kat
was.
said we're gonna do a thing, and I said, okay, cool. I'm a hyperfixating organizer, and I may or may not have led an entire city raid. Kent was thinking it was going to be a small gangrel thing.
Yep, my
He also didn't
mistake.
expect me to
How
try to
dare.
negotiate with the weregator, so you know.
No, I didn't expect that either. That's true. But yeah, I think those were kind of defining. So, not to open up any old wounds, even though it's been quite a bit of time since, is there anything you wish you could have done with Leanna that you didn't get the chance to do? For those who don't know, Leanna was executed in Tampa when she frenzied in the court scene in Tampa, which you can go back and watch on YouTube or here on Twitch if you'd like to. But was there anything kind of unfulfilled ambitions or anything to wish you could have done with Leanna as a character?
She wanted to get Shug's boat back. She had really started to form this mentorship relationship with Eden, and that didn't really get to play out fully. Um, I think those were kind of the two big in character things that she didn't get to finish. My only out of character regret was forgetting the fucking willpower rules that I taught on a regular basis. Because next time I went to do a rules class, I'm like, I could have spent a willpower to maintain frenzy and get the fuck out. But I forgot.
Yeah, it was a very intense scene. And I actually,
It
honestly,
was.
like, for me as the
It was.
storyteller, it went perfectly. Like that
It
was
did.
the ideal end to that scene, because it just would have been this weird, awkward kind of end. And as it was a stream and everything, you want to have the big impactful moments on stream. And if everybody had walked out alive, it would have just been like, no, like it wouldn't have helped my story very much. And that was, I mean, it was a defining
True.
moment. It was a huge moment, because I think there were characters in the game that many felt were unkillable. That, it was just the newer players that were falling left and right, making stupid
Mhm.
mistakes, and that these pillars of the game were just kind of standing and remaining all throughout. And so I think with Leanna's death, that really said, like, oh no, there's a much bigger threat here. It's not just the threat of yourselves. Like, there's an imposing outside threat that isn't just picking off little people, it's picking off big people. And then that was echoed with Nara, with the whole,
Yeah.
Hunter storyline, like that these big pillars that had just managed to maintain through everything were falling. So yeah, I think that was really cool. So what possessed you, and I use that word
Yeah.
specifically, to completely turn the script and create Amethyst. Now, for those that don't know, Amethyst was a very, kind of new age, kind of con man a little bit, I dare say.
Oh,
Uh,
100% con man.
that made you choose Clan Hikata and kind of take this whole nother aspect where you became another monumental pillar of a character, of course, no surprise there. But what made you, what was the kind of thought process going into creating Amethyst and choosing to play that character as a complete opposite to what you had played with Leanna?
So Amethyst was kind of funny. She came to life, as it were, at a friend's birthday party. We were playing, and I can't think of the name of the game, but there's a game where um, it's like a guess card game of some sort. And somehow we'd gotten throughout the course of play, we got into talking about bed bugs because that's a normal thing people talk about. Oh no, I'm sorry. We had to talk about ghosts. And somebody had made a comment about what if there were people who promised that they could like get rid of ghosts in the way that snake oil salesman wasn't the word, but I love snake oil salesmen and
Right.
that whole quackery field. I said, so what if there were ghost hunters that had these like false, totally useless and sometimes harmful remedies like bed bugs. So apparently there are people out there that sell these bed bug remedies that don't work and apparently cause cancer. Um, it's like the whole silver thing with the pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay off my quackery soapbox because I'll go places. So I messaged the team and I'm like, I can't even get away from ghosts off server because this was like the height of not the height of, this was toward the end of the first part of the Theo plot.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to thinking, I'm like, there's something here. This is great. I love spiritualism. I'm like, I can play with that a little bit. So Amethyst, in reality, if we're talking like nature and demeanor back from the old days, her demeanor is this super light hippie flower child, whatever. Her demeanor is stone cold bitch. She is very manipulative. She is dirty. She is a gross, gross creature. There have definitely been times that I've had to I've walked away from a session and I'm like, am I okay? That was so slimy. What's wrong with me? And she became, I think, a lot in thanks to Darlene. She softened a lot when Darlene came in. Those of you who don't know Worst Vampire Darlene, go look her on TikTok. Amanda's a wonderful human, very creative. When Darlene came to Amethyst's attention, she was being brought into Elysium, probably to be executed. And we even talked out of character, and Kent's like, I don't know how to make this not happen because she has broken the masquerade left and right. She's broken domain. She's broken hospitality. I don't know how to make Isabel not execute her. I'm like, I got you. Because like a week or two prior, Isabel said, find me a thin blood.
Because they were trying to solve the issue with the beckoning at the time, and they knew that there was a thin blood formula that would make that extended at least.
Yep. So in that council meeting, Amethyst said, you said to find you a thin blood. Give me this thin blood. And Amethyst to Darlene prettied it up with, oh, I can't bear to see someone die for being uneducated and yada, yada, blah, 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 blah. When really it was just, this is a massive resource, very beneficial. This is a person who has murdered her way across the country, which, great for the Hikata, and is going to get me in good graces with the prince and hopefully maybe counterbalance some of the things that my off the hinges cousin has done. Um, all the love to Craven. This is what Humanity 4 does, guys.
Uh-huh.
And then she actually developed affection for Darlene. And it stopped being your resource and started being, I actually care about you. Well, shit.
Yeah, and I think that you, with Amethyst, also kind of put a new perspective and defined the Hekata in a different way for people who'd been playing. Because they had been very used to one style of Hekata being played in the way that, Craven was portrayed. And you brought in a diametric opposite and again took on the role of clan mom, which you did very, very, very well. Especially since we were letting more and more Hekata in and kind of opening up the clan. We were really still dabbling with it at that point, and you were able to come in and really like confidently portray the role. You'd done your research. You obviously had studied up on it, and therefore were able to kind of set a new definition and a new standard for Hekata players, and kind of make the clan feel more accessible at the very least, even if behind the scenes she was, hating everything and everyone. You did make it accessible, to say the very least, and were a big part of kind of the first iteration ending storyline with the Theo plot. You found yourself in the driver's seat again of kind of having to make all of that happen. So in a way, I think that it was a natural progression. At the first Kindred Con, you'd gotten the Paper Plate Award for most likely to be a storyteller next, which obviously ended up coming true. But I think that because you were so good at organizing people, you were already kind of doing the job, to be completely honest, in a lot of ways. Like maybe you couldn't determine the outcomes of stuff, you couldn't, come up with the consequences for stuff, but you really were telling the stories for Gangrel as Leanna and for Hekata, obviously, as Amethyst. And so now what I want to talk about is your current stories. So I know you've got two tables going on right now, and you touched on them briefly earlier before. And hopefully all cards are played right. We'll be seeing those on stream or at least on YouTube soon enough for people to see. We're working out the technical aspects, but we're heading in that direction. So what would be kind of your sales pitch or your sneak preview about those two games to the people who are watching that know nothing about it?
Okay. So Amateur Hour, like I said, Amateur Hour is the one that I had a plot for. In fact, I have, this is a 2 to 3 chapter plot. We are currently working our way through the first chapter, and so what has happened is they were called by the Barons and said, hey, we got this audio file just randomly texted to our phones from an unknown number. Like can't trace it back. There's no actual phone number on it. And it's this podcast about things that have happened in St. Pete. And the characters who have been in St. Pete for a while recognize these incidents that that these podcasts are talking about. And so the Baron said, you need to find these people quickly and quietly and deal with them, preferably without killing them. In fact, I made so they don't just, to encourage them to not just murder hobo their way through my plot, their chronicle tenant is, and I can't remember exactly how I worded it, but it's basically death is the cheater's way out. So they have been chasing this podcast down. The first 4 episodes, no, 4 counting the pilot, were randomly messaged places. The second one, our Gangrel got randomly messaged to his phone just as our Tremere had bought burner phones for everybody. And they were getting them all activated. And just as soon as Frank's got activated, he gets a text message with an audio file. And then the third one, they heard a guy play on his Bluetooth in his car. The fourth one, Aster heard on the radio on the way home that there were two late night talk show hosts talking about it and played the clip. The last one they don't actually get sent to them. They'd been on some Reddit forums, and one of them posted like, "Hey, anybody heard of this? Anybody seen any new podcast or any new episodes? Blah blah." And they got, "Oh, you mean this one?" and a link to a website, which is where they found out that the podcast episodes they'd been getting had been leaked by somebody. That the podcasters had been preloading a bunch of episodes. They had planned to release them after the holidays, so there wouldn't be a break in episodes, but they got leaked.
And for a little bit more context, for what these podcast episodes and why they're relevant and important is because they were trending on some very masquerade-threatening issues. They were talking about things that, were pretty well covered up by the kindred population, but still somehow were getting investigated. And one of the things I want to credit you for is that you made it a multimedia media experience in the fact that you published some of these podcast snippets on TikTok under a completely separate TikTok account known as Tampa Bay Terrors. It's tampa.bay.terrors on TikTok, where you can hear and kind of get a sneak peek into what they're going to be or what they have been dealing with and encountering in the game. So go check out that Tampa Bay Terrors and give them a follow. They're also on our website, I believe, at stbynight.com/TBT.
TBT pod.
TBT pod, yep. So you can find them there, but before the streams or episodes start to air, they are available. You can at least see the podcast snips to give you a kind of sneak peek into what they're encountering. And I think that's so cool that you actually took it that extra step of making it a multimedia experience. But anyway, please continue with your explanation.
The TikTok gets uploaded after the session. Now that the website is live, the episodes are getting uploaded to the website ahead of time. I love props. I am a very, I spent entirely too much money on my Witchlight game, buying props. I have the Witchlight, Witchlight Queen crown because my player skipped the entire second half of the chapter. So nobody got crowned the Queen of the Carnival or however it was. So I got to keep the crown. But when I was building Amateur Hour, I'm like, okay, so what can I do? Because obviously I can't do physical props. I'm like, oh, we do this podcast. I don't have time in my life to record a whole podcast. I would love to. And I want to make it unique. I don't want it to just be me. So I cannot take credit for all of this. Oh, the bulk of the hard work goes to Kent, Crafty, Champ, Burnham, and Bera, who are my podcasters. They do all the individual recordings. The podcast is different hosts each fortnight, which adds just that extra bit of
intrigue.
Realism, intrigue and realism to it, which I love. I love so much that you guys have done that. I appreciate it more than I can ever say, and just makes the whole world more real.
Yeah, absolutely. And now let's talk about your other game, your Graveyard Shift game, which we're also hopefully going to be seeing on streaming soon. And that's the Hospital Coterie, as we've defined them, or the Rock Stars, because of how they propose themselves to us, which we still are blown away by to this very day.
Yes.
Talk about that game a little bit more.
So that game, like I said, that game's been a little more freeform, because I didn't have a plot written. So they came in, we worked together to figure out, okay, why are you here? How can we connect things? So with the way that things have happened with the prevamp, or from the prevamp to the revamp, Amethyst lost a lot of her staff at the Red Salon. So a couple of our vendors were like, well, we're going to be from Boston. I'm like, fucking perfect. because Amethyst came from Boston. So Prince Iverson is going to send you down to Boston to help Amethyst out. It is definitely in Boston's best interest that the salon is successful. So she's going to send you down to help her out with that. And then our Malkavian came from Chicago on a vision. And she knew Mallory ahead of time. They worked together for a while. So it was a little more freeform for a while. We are starting to get into some stuff. They're pretty sure there's been a messy feeder in the area. So we had an article that went out probably a couple months ago at this point, of this weird mystery illness around St. Pete that's leaving people fatigued and weak and anemic. And, our kindred aren't dumb. So like, okay, we know what's up. So they finally, last session, they are pretty sure they have tagged their messy feeder and are going to be trying to chase that down. We have Mallory, who is the older of the two veterans there. Mallory and Forrest are broodmates. Mallory has taken a very big disliking to Vivian, or Pigeons, as she calls her, who's our Malkavian, to Vivian Sire, and is trying to take her down behind the scenes, which has been very entertaining. And then very soon, our Tremere is going to be coming in. We had the fourth member of the group had some life stuff happen, so they couldn't come in right away. And I'm very, very excited. I'm excited for all of them, but I'm very excited for this one in particular because they're playing a Tremere, and they were looking at the player's guide, and they're like, I kind of want to play a Plague Oracle. I said, I kind of have need for a Plague Oracle. How would you feel about maybe being a plot linchpin? It might go poorly for you in the end. We'll see. Without giving too much away, because I have some future plot stuff. Because initially, when I was writing things up, I had two different chapters 1 and 2 for two different plots. So I do have some future plot stuff that my new Plague Oracle is going to be very what is the word I want? Intrinsic is not the word I want. Instrumental. Thank you. I'm like, it's an I word. Very instrumental. I'm super excited. Coming back to all these neat things that V5 has added that we need more lore on. I need more lore on the fucking Plague Oracles.
No.
It's such a cool
They teased
concept.
us with it and then are just like nothing. They give us no content. Yeah, it's
there's like this itty bitty section killing me. So and our Malkavian killed somebody.
As you do.
As you do. She got a little peakish and a little hungry, and the beast took over. In a very the combat scene to get all of the people who rushed to the code blue cleaned up with the one Ventru who had cloud memory was great. Very Benny Hill.
Fantastic.
And very lucky for them, the hospital is owned and run by Aurora and Dr. Alex, and the head of security is Alistair. So everything was already easily contained. Aurora and Alex have the system set up that when there are chart notes with certain keywords, it gets sent immediately to them, like it's locked down the system and gets sent straight to them. So they were very lucky. There wasn't an actual masquerade breach. Everybody got to keep their heads.
Yay.
And I give all the credit to Allie on this one. They got to meet Aurora and Alex after everything happened. And Allie messaged me. She's like, I kind of want to use dementation. I'm like, all right, let's talk to them. So we talked to them ahead of time. I'm like, I'm not going to give anything away. How are you with mindfuckery? Like, are we all okay with this? And they okayed it. And so Aurora demented Viv, and Allie met as we're like getting up into this. She's like, I want to make her relive from the woman's perspective, her death. which was phenomenal. It was a really good scene, very intense. My only regret was Nathan pointed out when we did our Rosebud Thorn. He said, my only thorn was when you described Vivian coming into the room, I thought for sure you were going to make her monstrous. And I said, that wasn't my thorn, but it is now.
Yeah, I'll remember that for the future for sure.
Right? I mean, fucking perfect.
Well, without too many more spoilers
Yes.
for people, because that is going to hopefully be airing in not too much longer. I want to ask you
I haven't given any proper spoilers.
No.
Everything's.
But that's going to be a scene people are going to definitely be looking out for now.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So I have some lightning round questions I want to ask you, but this is going to be the last time I'm going to push our giveaway for tonight, which is you can get a piece of art made by our very own Champ from Champ's Tramps, our newest partnered vendor there. You can see an example of her work on the right, as well as several examples of her work on the left. We are doing that giveaway tonight. If you put the name or the hashtag Champ in the chat, she will draw whatever you want. Could be a D&D character, VTM character, a character concept you have that you haven't been able to flesh out. She'll bring it to life for you in a style of your choosing, whether it's the Has-Been Hotel style, like you can see of Isabel on the far left of her flyer there. It could be something in the middle there, like Birdbee, the kobold in the middle, something more realistic, like our puppers on the right, or a chibi style, like you see on the far right. So you can have a piece of artwork done for you by our very own Champ. Just put in hashtag Champ in the chat and you'll be in the running for that giveaway. So, lightning round time. What is your favorite quality of World of Darkness and Vampire the Masquerade? What's your favorite thing about it?
How well it lends itself to roleplay.
Okay. What's your least favorite thing about Vampire the Masquerade? Or World of Darkness?
The toxicity it tends to attract.
It does very much at that. What are you looking forward to or hoping that they will bring into the 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade? We've talked about the things we miss, but if you were creative director of World of Darkness right now, if you had the ability to say, hey, this is a priority, we'd like this to be put out, what would you want them to put out? What is something you're looking forward to or hoping that they'll put out?
I want more clan lore. I want more information on the plague oracles. I want more specific, especially like we talked about with the Theo Bell stuff and all of these new pieces that they have introduced in the V5 lore.
What is
fucking clan books?
What is a splat from World of Darkness that you haven't really either experienced? So you could throw werewolf in this mix as well. But out of werewolf, mage, wraith, exalted, demon, mummy, all of the splats that they've put out, what's a splat that you'd really like to try that you haven't had the chance to try yet?
I really want to play mage. We were supposed to play mage, and then our storyteller and his wife got pregnant, and he was like, I'm still gonna play, like, let's keep going, we're gonna do this. And I'm like, dude, you're about to have a baby. And the game fell apart, unfortunately. And I have a mage written up that I love the concept and I need to play her someplace.
Well, hopefully, if everything is looking the way it's looking, Mage will be the next major release that they have. I'm guessing sometime next year at the soonest. But yeah, maybe we'll get your chance. Who is a player that is not currently at your tables, but that you played with in St. Pete that you would love to run for?
We had this fight, and you won only because they couldn't fucking play on Tuesdays. I want Burnham and Simon at my table. I was going to drive down to Florida and physically fight Kent.
Well, get more available, I guess.
Yes.
Well, and that's another beautiful thing about the revamp is that tables are not set with the storyteller they have. When stories come to their natural conclusions, tables might switch storytellers. So if you are at a table already and you are not with a storyteller you'd like an opportunity to play with, don't fret. You may get that opportunity, just like one day, long from now, Calf might get her opportunity with Burnham and Simon,
Maybe.
but we'll see. We'll see. But
Which is
okay.
not to say that there are other players on the server that I would not also love to run for, because there are many of you who are phenomenal, and I love you all.
Such a diplomatic answer.
Those are my top two, though.
What is your favorite piece of World of Darkness lore? Actually written lore. Could be an event, could be a character, could be anything.
I think it's a toss-up between the Xavier storyline and the Cappadocian storyline.
Okay. So for those who don't know, look up Xavier, look up Cappadocians on White Wolf Wiki. You can get the lowdown on all of that. If you can get your hands on the old material, even better, but that is hard to do legally these days. So yeah, just look it up. See if you can get your hand on some of those old clan books, because they are so good. Okay, what is your favorite piece of St. Pete lore? So far, at least.
Annalee.
Which one?
Annalee. The mage that was, or the lich that was possessing Theo. Much like you had managed to hit on a point with Leanna that was not one of my actual convictions, that was not written into the story, with She Who Shines. Bera managed to hit a point on Amethyst, because Amethyst's whole thing was she wanted to just help spirits. She saw spirits in pain, which is how she came to St. Pete. She heard them screaming, and she wanted to help them cross over.
Yeah.
And she knew, like, she was like, she's been saying for months that he's possessed. This isn't Theo, he's possessed. And then she got to talk to Annalee, and Annalee dropped that facade and actually got real with her. And it's for her immediately in that conversation switched from we need to kill Theo and get this done to I will save Annalee.
Okay. Double Magus actually does bring up a good point. A lot of the old books are available on drivethrurpg.com. They can also be found on storytellersvault.com, which are owned by the same company. I think they just have multiple domains. But yeah, you can find PDFs, and they'll print you a copy. It'll be pricey, but you can get printed copies of the old stuff as well through those sites. So if you're interested in picking up the old material, those are good places to get them. In an alternate...
You can also, if you like the physical copies, you can still get them on eBay. My Salubri book,
but...
mine's actually in really good. It was a little pricey. I think I paid like $30 for the Salubri splat, but I realized one day that I didn't have Gangrel and I didn't have Salubri, and I picked up both of those on eBay. Nice. And they're both in decent shape.
Okay, so yeah, there are some options to get them, depending on what your price range and budget is. But I do recommend the DriveThruRPG stuff. I use a lot of their stuff for D&D and for Vampire. So if you're looking for those are some good resources you can get those from. In an alternate universe, had the story gone differently overall for St. Pete, what is something that if you could like undo an event that happened or change something that ended up being a part of the story for the St. Pete lore, what would you have undone or done differently? Since now you're a storyteller, you can kind of think of it from that angle. What is something that you would have liked to have seen done differently?
I don't think it's necessarily something that I would have liked to have seen done differently, like in the sense that I think it was done incorrectly or should have been changed. But from a selfish perspective, I would have liked Nero to stick around for a while, because we had a really good in-character feud that was a lot of fun, and he died before. Leanna was salty because he died before Leanna could get him executed.
Fair. That's fair. You wanted to get the last laugh.
Strip down. Right.
That's fair. That's a very legitimate. Yeah. Okay. All right.
But I think that's one of my favorite, like, it's not a roleplay moment because it was a series of moments, but I love that back and forth political sniping at each other that we had.
Absolutely. So, what are you looking forward to most? We're a few months into the revamp now. We're probably about 4, 5, maybe almost 6 months in. What are you looking forward to in this new kind of style of how we're running St. Pete, or what's something that you'd like to see further develop in this new style of how we run the game?
Um, I think I'm looking forward to most seeing more people in Open RP. I really think this siloed table inside an open world is a much better setup than we had before. Um, I love the idea of an open world LARP in a small setting.
Absolutely.
We had too many people to make it functional, and you guys were killing yourselves
Literally.
trying to keep up. So I think the format we have now is phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to seeing more people get out and engage and meet each other across the world. And I'm looking forward to, as we continue to settle in, because I think we're still kind of getting our feet a little.
For sure.
We're finding things that we're like, oh, hey, we didn't realize this was a problem, or this is going to become a problem if we don't change this now. Um, so once we get our feet under us, I'm really looking forward to some of the upcoming world events that we've already started to kind of throw around.
Yeah, we've laid the groundwork for a lot of cool events
Mhm.
coming up, and we're talking more about intertable plays where tables cross over each other. We're going to be having some of those coming up soon. So yeah, now that we are actually getting our footing, we are moving on to the next evolution of St. Pete in the revamp process. Um, Before we do any final thoughts and put a bow on this thing, it's time for our giveaway. Like I said, our giveaway is from Champs Tramps. You'll get one free color image of your choice of a favorite character or a character concept or in a style of your choosing from our newest partnered vendor, Champs Tramps. So put in that hashtag champ because we are about to do the drawing to find out who the winner on tonight's stream is. Like I said, one full color image from Champs Tramps could be yours tonight for free. And thank you so much to Champ and Champs Tramps for making that happen. So, our winner of tonight's giveaway is. Let me see if I can find the page. There it is. The winner of tonight's giveaway is Double Magus. So, congratulations, Double Magus. You have won a free art piece from Champs Tramps. You can get in touch with Champ, the mod, on the server and get the process started on that as well. And because we hit 500 followers, 10K is also getting a free art piece from Tramps. So, congratulations to you both. Calf, thank you so much for doing this with me. Oh God, my words. I've got to end this thing.
That's awkward. You're like a brother to me.
I know. Thank you so much for doing this with me tonight. It's always a joy to talk to you. We've got such a long and varied history and so much that we could still cover. So I don't think this will be a one-off thing. I'm sure we'll have you back on for a part two, especially to catch up on your stories once they start streaming. But are there any final thoughts or words you'd like to share with the viewers at home, those who are part of community, those who aren't, just to the world of darkness in general? Anything you'd like to say?
I will first off say that I think it's really entertaining that there was a question in admin earlier about a stream watch along that's also scheduled for tonight, and you were like, "Go ahead and start it at 10." I don't think we're going to go any longer than that.
And here we are.
Um,
Because we could talk forever. I mean, like you said,
Right?
we're like family. We've known each other for such a long time. I didn't even think we'd
Right?
talk about Kanar as much as we did. But it
Right.
does give a lot of good context.
Um, I think final thoughts are, you keep saying that I did you a solid. You did me just as much of a solid. I had been missing Vampire. We'd only played a couple of campaigns here and there in the last
And it'd been over
couple of
10 years
decades.
since we had, yeah.
Right. And like I said earlier, I've met so many people that I never would have had any contact with ever. I've formed some very amazing friendships. I've met some phenomenal people, and I really do love this community. I love this game. Werewolf as a whole, apparently, White Wolf as a whole, because it's always going to be White Wolf.
Always.
Fuck that.
Always and forever.
Don't care. Always White Wolf, and Pluto is a planet. End of story. I will not be taking any questions. And particularly the St. Pete community, you guys are phenomenal, whether you're at a table or doing one shots or just hanging out with us in general, like general chat, also in a general sense. I love that you guys are here. I love that you're making the community what it is.
So if you want to support Caff, you can go follow her on the TikTok for as long as that exists, whether it's another 6 months or another, 6 years, who knows at this point. You can follow her on Caffeinatrixx, as it's spelled on the screen there. She's done some amazing OC work as both Leanna and Amethyst that you can go see from the past. It's an entertaining follow, so definitely go give her a follow there. Also, you can support her campaign by going and following tampa.bay.terrors, where you can get the snippets and snapshots of the various podcasts that her characters are currently tuning into and investigating. You can follow her over there on the TikTok as well. But thank you so much, Caff. Yes.
Tampa Bay Terrors is the more important one. Get me on Shadowban, damn it. They think I'm a bot.
Yeah, so go give her a follow, go interact with the
Please.
posts there so that they can get better seen. But thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I knew you would. I appreciated that you did this for me. And I do appreciate all the work you do for our community, for our server. I couldn't imagine doing this without you. You were one of the first invites I made for sure right out the gate when I knew I was doing this project because of our shared history with World of Darkness. And so I'm glad that you were here, helping me make this a reality and pushing us well into the future. Go follow St. Pete by Night, obviously, on all the social media you see down at the bottom. We're on Instagram, we're on X, we're on TikTok. You can join our community with the link that is listed on the Twitch video or the YouTube video. It's discord.gg/St. Pete by Night. You could become a part of this amazing community, and who knows, maybe you'll have the fortune or misfortune to be at Caff's table in the future, as we are always, misfortune in a good way, of course, trauma, the like. But yeah, we are always
mutually loved trauma.
We are always accepting new members to the community. It is growing, it is getting better all the time, and we're hoping to have more games open soon. But thank you so much all for watching tonight. Thank you to Tramps for the support and the sponsorship and the giveaway tonight. And we'll see you all soon. This week, we've got several streams coming up. Tomorrow night, we have Bloody Strings, the next episode of their Chronicle. On Tuesday, we have Rage Across Tampa on our Werewolf the Apocalypse Chronicle. We've got Don't Get Caught, the Anarch Chronicle run by Crafty Mirage. We've got our Hunter Chronicle, episode 2 of that coming up next Friday. And then on Saturday of this coming week, we have another After Dark where we're going to have Panchi, the artista, as our special guest. And then on the 30th, we're going to have Mr. Gone himself, the creator of all of those amazing character sheets that many of you love to use, on the stream as well. So just stay tuned. Check out the schedule down below. There's so much stuff that you can see here on the St. Pete by Night Twitch channel. It's just growing all the time. But for Caff, I am Kent. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Good night.